Howdy and welcome to Chapter 7. In Chapter 7 we're going to talk about training and developing employees. And if you're an EHRD major, you've probably gone over these topics before, so this all should be a review for you. So we're going to talk about how training and development are linked to competitive advantage. Talk about the difference between training and development, the training process, how to make sure training programs are successful. And then we're going to talk about a couple different training programs such as onboarding and diversity training. So training and development is definitely linked to competitive advantage, okay, and it contributes to it by three ways. And we're going to talk about those. It enhances recruitment. It allows us to attract the best candidates or applicants to our company because it's very attractive to have the opportunity to improve skills and to develop oneself for the future. So that makes a company very attractive. It increases the competence of new employees. We can provide technical training, how they're going to do their job so they'll be more efficient. We'll train them in onboarding, where they learn about the company and the policies. And some companies do literacy training, sort of basic skill trainings, could be in writing or math, things like that, kind of the skills that employees may need to come and enter into the workforce and be trained for further skills. Then we also increase the competence of current workers. Okay, sometimes we have remedial training when they're deficient in something, we can train them. We have change-related training because the environment is continually changing. We have new technology coming out. We have new laws coming out, or the organization switches focus. So all these require current workers to be trained. And then lastly, we can develop our current workers in order to meet the needs in the future. So we're going to develop them and train them and give them higher level skills so when positions come open that they're able to move into those positions and be promoted. And then we reduce the likelihood of unwanted turnover because training builds somebody's skills and improves their performance. Therefore, we won't have issues with that employee's performance. It also improves supervisors' capabilities for managing underperforming workers. And we're also training supervisors so that they can handle their employees in a better way, that employees don't want to leave the company. And it increases employee loyalty. Employees like companies that are interested in their continued development and give them new skills and responsibilities. So an important distinction I wanted to make between training and development. Training is the process where we're providing employees with specific skills or helping them correct deficiencies in performance. Okay, and that has to do with their current job. And it has to do with fixing some sort of a skill deficit. And some employees may see this as negative, but really it's a way to help them so that they can effectively perform their job. Versus development is where we provide employees with abilities we need in the future. Okay, so it looks at the future, looks at the long term. It prepares employees for future work and demands. Another big challenge of training, we have to look at training and we have to ask some questions. Is training the solution to the problem? Because sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's a problem of an employee not being motivated. Sometimes it's a problem of not having the appropriate resources. So we have to make sure before we design and carry out a training program that it's really the solution to the problem. And that's why we always do a needs assessment. Okay, and then we want to know, are the goals clear and realistic? We're going to set up objectives for training. They have to be clear. They have to be realistic. Training has to be a good investment. We don't want to spend $50,000 on training and the benefit is maybe $4,000. Okay, so it has to be a good investment for the company to be strategic. And then lastly, it has to work. Will the employees be able to return to their jobs and perform whatever skill was taught? That's called transfer of training. So in the training process, we first go through a needs assessment and we look at different things, and then we look at how are we going to develop the training program, and then how are we going to evaluate it. So in doing a needs assessment, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to identify the problems or needs that training can address. Okay, so we have to look at a couple different things. We look at the organization, we look at the person, we look at the task. Okay, so to start, we do a gap analysis. So by that it means we look at the current situation and we look at the desired situation. And we see, is there some sort of a gap there? Okay, that's a gap analysis. So the difference or the gap will identify the needs and purposes. And this could be things that are problems or deficits, could be skill problems, could be some change, could be an opportunity. I mean, maybe a new technology has come out on the market and this is an opportunity for this company to implement that and gain competitive advantage. Okay, it could be mandated training, could be that the government came out and said, now you have to train everybody in this particular safety procedure. Then secondly, we have to identify the priorities and importance. We have to examine each of these and look at their importance, how they relate to the goals of the company. Is it cost effective? Is it a legal mandate? Is there executive pressure, or the CEO of the company wants this to be done? Our customers sort of saying something needs to be done. It could be an issue of customer service. Then we have to identify the causes of performance problems or opportunities. Are people doing their jobs effectively? Do they know how to do their jobs? Okay, we have to look at that because it could be something else. Like I said, it could be a motivation problem. And then lastly, we want to identify solutions and growth opportunities. So training may be the solution if there's a knowledge problem, if that's what the gap is. So secondly, we develop and conduct the training. So the training that results from the needs assessment has to be in direct response to this problem. Okay, you would never develop a training program and then go back and say, does this address a need? First you have to have some sort of problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so we can look at, in the development phase, we look at location. You know, how are we going to do this? Are we going to train people on the job? And on-the-job training is very high in transfer of training because they're actually doing in training what they're doing on the job. This consists of job rotation, apprenticeships, internships. So it's very relevant to the job. It can be inexpensive to implement. There's immediate feedback, but it can be costly in customer satisfaction. Think of if you're in a restaurant, you have a server in training and they're very slow and you're in a hurry. Okay, so that could cause some issues there. Then we have location off training, okay, off the job training. So this is training where people get to leave their job and go get trained. So the advantage is it gives a person uninterrupted time. They're not disturbed by text and phone calls and people coming in and that sort of thing. So there's less distractions. But there might not be a transfer of training quite as easily as on-the-job training. Then we have different options. How are we going to present training? And you've sat through enough training being at this point in your college career, so you've experienced many of these things. There are slides and videos, teletraining, computer simulations, virtual reality, classroom instruction, role play. All these have different effects on the learner and have to be tied into the objectives of what you're trying to accomplish in the learning program. Okay, then we have skills training. Okay, we have retraining, cross-functional training, team training. Okay, all those are types of training we could do. Some additional ones, creativity training or brainstorming, where you teach people how to come up with new ideas. We could have literacy training if we have a literacy issue in our workforce. Diversity training is very popular in today's workforce because we have so many diverse people of different ages and backgrounds coming together that sometimes it creates conflict. So we create diversity training to help break down the barriers of communication and get people to know each other and that sort of thing. We could have crisis training, customer service, ethics training. Okay, this just gives you sort of an idea of some of the trainings that companies do. Okay, then lastly, we have to look at the return on investment. And this is important. Like I said in the beginning, you want to kind of know this. You want to kind of have an idea of the benefit you're going to get from this training before you spend a lot of money. And this isn't always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes you can't really calculate this. For instance, how would I calculate training that I did on teaching my recruiters the EEO laws so that they don't cause discrimination lawsuits to be filed against my company? And I do an effective training and they all know the right things to say, what not to say, and I don't get sued. But that's hard to measure. You know, I know how much I spent on the training, but how do I figure out how much I save from not having a lawsuit? So you can see how it sort of can be a little tricky. But sometimes it's more obvious. If it decreases turnover or other measurable things, we can go in and we can measure the cost benefit, and we can calculate the return on investment. And this is important. Okay, so some things we can look at in the evaluation phase that are non-monetary. Like I said, because sometimes it's hard to do. We can look at the reaction. Were the participants pleased? Do they plan? What do they plan to do with what they learn? We can look at the learning. What skills, knowledge, or attitudes have changed and by how much? Especially in diversity training, we're going to look at this particular item. How has the attitude changed? You know, do they have a different attitude now toward working with their diverse coworkers? We can look at behavior. Did they change their behavior based on the program? Did the change in behavior positively affect the organization? Okay, and then we have to consider some legal issues. You know, employees have to have access to training and development in a non-discriminatory fashion. I can't create a situation of adverse impact, you know, by choosing or having requirements where I'm choosing training based on something that causes some group to be disenfranchised. I don't want to do that. There's also ADA issues. If I'm having a training outside the company, is it accessible by people who need special accommodation? Okay, so there's a lot of legal issues we have to consider in training, because when you train somebody, you're giving them an advantage over someone else. If I choose you for a development program, I'm giving you an advantage in promotion versus someone else. So we have to make sure that those are done in a non-discriminatory way. Okay, employee orientation, or you may have heard of onboarding, is a type of training program. This is where we help new employees kind of come into the company and orient them to what goes on. And we tell them what the company's all about and you know, how to get around and what they're going to be doing and that sort of thing. So this is really important because this is what starts somebody off on the right track in the organization and gives them a good feeling and a good attitude about working there. Okay, so we want to make them feel welcome and help them understand. We may give them a realistic job preview. That means we're going to tell them the good and the bad of what's expected. I mean, what are you going to be doing? What do we expect you to be doing? That sort of thing. Help them start becoming socialized. We may have a mentoring program. We may introduce them to somebody. Okay, so the manager's role in training and development is to provide or assist with orientation. Okay, they definitely are part of orientation. They need to be able to assess the needs. I mean, a supervisor who works with the employees would know if there's some need as far as a skill deficiency or some training needs to happen. So supervisors and managers are very critical. They are the ones that provide on-the-job training, and they ensure the transfer of training. When the employee gets back to the job, the manager or supervisor has to ensure that they start doing what they learned on the job. The HR person, they provide and assist with orientation as well. They contribute to management development programs. Sometimes they provide training and development. The book talks about certain cases where HR outsources this function, which could happen. Lastly, they evaluate training. Well, I hope you found something interesting in this chapter. I think most of it was probably just a review for you, but hopefully you learned something. I know I learn something every time I look at these topics. Thank you.